fixing the money thing.
You know I like to hunt. I told this story for years. I'll tell it forever probably because it's when God got my attention. And I would sow my seed for my deer. God showed me how to hunt by faith and, get the deer, and even got to the place I could name the sex of the deer, because that's important if you hunt deer, because you can only get one buck. That's the law. You can get, I think, 5 does, or you can get multiple deer, but the state of Ohio says you can only get one buck. They're trying to keep the herd in check, right? But you can get a button buck. That's a young buck, little horns. We count that as a doe because you can't see them at a distance. So it'd be hard for you to judge if it's a doe or a buck, so we let you get those. So on my property, I don't want to shoot the does, so I sowed a seed for an 8-point buck and a button buck because I hunt for meat. This was years ago. And I've had years of experience with this. When I sow my seed, the deer shows up. You read my faith hunt book, this is how it works. So I went out in 15 minutes, I had my 8-point buck. 15 minutes, 8-point buck. It's like clockwork, works every time. So I went out about 2 weeks later to get my next buck, which should have been the button buck. And I'm in my tree stand, and I see this beautiful 8-point about 200 or 300 yards away in the field, trotting right for me. Now I have a big woods, very long, hundreds of yards long, but he is trotting straight towards me. And he comes into the woods, and he comes to my tree, and he stands directly under my tree. I'm thinking, why are you here? I can't take you because I already have my buck. I was confused because I know that it should have been a button buck. Why is the 8-point buck there? Because he stood there for like 30 seconds motionless right below me. I could almost hear his thoughts. He's on assignment, right? I mean, I put him there. I put him there. He could not move. He came not because he didn't want it. He had to come. He's on assignment. And he's standing there waiting. Says, make it quick, Gary, make it quick. That's his destiny. He's on assignment for God. But I couldn't take him. Now, I was confused. And so I did what I challenge you to do. When you think you're supposed to be here and you end up over here, you better start praying in the Spirit. Because God's going to reveal to you what happened. And so that's what I did. I began to pray in the Spirit, and God said, you need to go check your seed, what you sowed for this deer. I said, I sowed it. I know what I sowed, right? No, I didn't. So I went and got the check. The bank keeps a copy. I got the thing out. It said, okay, here's the check I sowed for my deer and released my faith. It said 2 bucks, 8-point, 1 button buck. How many deer is that? In what order? They always come as, I know it sounds crazy to you folks. If you're new here, God taught me how to sow for the sex of the deer. I mean, they come in order. 2 bucks, 8-point, showed up. Now, when I saw that, Drenda can testify, I began to holler and I began to run around the house. I was so excited, not because I didn't get the deer. It's not about the deer. The kingdom. That deer had no choice. He had to show up. He had to show up. He's on assignment because he stood there 30 seconds. Then after 30 seconds, his tail flipped and he just flipped around and tried to ride it back exactly across the same field. You could probably hear him go, that was a close one. But anyway, I did not mean for that to happen. That's not what I wanted to have happen. But that's what happened. Why? Because I put it in motion. But I didn't want to put that in motion. So why did it go? Because I decreed it. I put it in motion. And then it got my attention. How many things have I said that I did not want to see happen, but I am declaring them in my life? That caught my attention. Oh, wait a minute. You see, Jesus cursed a fig tree and it died. and he spoke to Lazarus and he lived. Both with words. Both with words. See, you have the authority. You got the ring. You may be stamping documents you don't want to put into law. Loose lips sink ships. It's from World War II. They had posters all over the barracks, all over the place to remind the soldiers to keep their lips shut. Don't put information in letters home. Don't put information in phone calls, because the enemy is looking for information or a way to take down the army, the country. Loose lips sink ships. Knowing who you are in Christ and what God has given you is the key to life. Don't simply agree with your circumstances, decree your circumstances. You understand what I'm saying? Don't simply say, well, this is it. Decree your circumstances. You have the authority to decree in your life what deer shows up. If your freezer has venison or if it doesn't. That's my choice. Don't keep begging or waiting on God to do it when he has given you the keys. Listen, we're getting close on time here, so I want to jump into this video. I got a family here that discovered the principles and are now enjoying the benefit. Let's watch their story.
I'm a former federal law enforcement officer, and towards the end of me resigning from there, we felt that there was something more, right? So I finally resigned from federal service, and we moved 4 hours north from our hometown up to San Antonio, started our own business, inspection business, and it never really clicked for that first year, so we struggled and our accounts were overdrawn. It was just a major roller coaster ride, until one day I was really discouraged. I even told her, God doesn't care about us. He's not looking. I mean, look at our bank accounts. We're overdrawn, and we try to do everything based on what we thought we were supposed to do. She came across Pastor Gary's ministry, and she just told me, hey, you have to listen to this teaching. So I started listening to the teachings about fragments, and most of our business was coming through this, I guess, one fragment. We do home real estate inspections, right? So I'll do one aspect of it, and there's a bank aspect of it. And it got to a point where I couldn't do the bank inspection side of it. And she said, you know what, I'll take care of it.
The banks came to him with an opportunity to do smaller little inspections that don't pay much, and they're really quick and easy, but he was just starting to get busy, and he didn't have time to do it. In the meantime, I had been praying for a job, and I wanted it to be a job that was between 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. so I could do it between, school hours. I could pick up the kids, make dinner, and whatever. I thought, well, maybe I can do this, honey. You don't have time to do this. Teach me how to do it, train me how to do them, and maybe I can do them. So it was just like 1 or 2 a week that I was like, I'll go do it. I'll get it done really quick and whatever. But in the meantime, we were also listening to the fragment teaching. I had it on repeat. We started listening to Pastor Gary on the podcast. So that's just what we started doing, just listening to it over and over and over and over. And we started looking for fragments, like, should we start couponing, or should we start, I don't know. We didn't know what to really look for, because this was all so new. All these kingdom principles that Pastor Gary talks about, we hadn't heard them in church. We've been in church, we were born in the church.
Right.
And we were tithing, and we were giving anytime there was a need. We would give, even if we had no money in the bank account, we would give. So it just didn't make sense what had been happening up to now. And so Pastor Gary's teachings were just completely eye-opening and revolutionary and just crazy to us. So we listened to we listened to the Sunday morning service, which we don't normally do. We only listened to the podcasts or the CDs and stuff. Right. So this was the first time we heard Pastor Drenda. Well, we heard them pick up the offering. So Pastor Drenda prayed for the offering. And it was just so amazing the way she spoke. It was like exactly what we needed to hear. Like, what are we doing here like failures? Like, this is not the God that we serve. It was just so like refreshing, and it just brought us so much hope. Like, God's got this. What are we doing? Like, we just kind of mulled it over and just waited. This started multiplying. The fragments started just multiplying. The banks were calling us and just asking, how are you doing this so fast? It usually takes our inspectors a lot longer to get them. And I was just doing it because I needed to be back at the school to pick up my kid. So I was doing them quick. So it was kind of like a fluke. Obviously, God was behind it.
I mean, going back to our giving changed too. It wasn't just like a bill that we were paying. We were naming our seeds.
That's true. We started.
How Pastor Gary talks,
we started,
giving. So that was the biggest thing that caused all these changes.
Right. We continued to give, but it was like purposeful giving. More banks started calling us because that bank had told them about us, and our business has grown so much. We now cover a huge portion of the state of Texas. We have several contractors in Dallas, in Houston, in McAllen, in San Antonio, Austin. We cover those whole areas. And it was just little kind of rejected things that nobody...
A normal inspection company would deny these type of inspections because it's just not worth their time. The amount of money she wanted to make per week for her part-time job, I mean, we're paying way more than that in payroll per week for our contractors. And now we're the business is getting bigger to where it's funneling through us to them. So now they have jobs, and we just gave somebody a job who lost his job, and he's married, has kids, and he was looking for work. And so now he's running, a certain area, a certain region, and it's just been a blessing, a huge blessing.
And we tell everybody that we can about Pastor Gary's teachings. Everyone will look at us like, hey, what happened to you? What's going on? We're like, okay, let me tell you, because it had nothing to do with us. It was all God, and it was just changing the way we thought and the way we saw God's principles.
And the way we sowed, the way we gave, the seeds that we would give, that just changes completely. And it's just God's kingdom, because we're not marketers. We don't have a marketing campaign. I know it's really important for business, but we don't have that marketing campaign. Right. The phone rings, and that's how we get the word. Phone just keeps on ringing. So our goal is for our business to make, to be a multi-million-dollar business, so we can continue to fund the kingdom. It will be hard in the beginning, but trust God, trust the principles, trust the laws. They work every single time.
Every single time it does. One little slight comment. It wasn't all God. Hello? It wasn't all God. Them and God. Right? Them and God. Amen. Hi, I'm Gary Keesee, and you will never fulfill your destiny until you fix your money thing. Visit GaryKeesee.com, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button below for more amazing weekly videos on fixing your money thing, and thanks for watching.